Well, we're going to start chapter 24 of Matthew. And I'm going to give a disclaimer at the beginning. I do not know what it all means. I have ideas, I have some opinions, but I can't say, well, this is what that means. There's been controversy and a wide splay of opinion on this particular chapter and the things Jesus says in it ever since he said it. Okay, so in some ways, I wanted just to say, well, you can read chapter 24 for yourself and move on to chapter 25. That's a chicken's way out and kind of disingenuous. How all of these things that Jesus is going to be talking about, how all that will happen, when all that will happen, and the significance of all that, I have this high level of doubt that anybody really has it figured out. So, I don't have it figured out, okay? There are a lot of teachers and preachers who the end times, that's one of their big pounding points, that they think they've got it figured out. I recall, I think it was in 1987, a guy wrote a book, 87 Reasons Why Jesus Will Return in 1987. And of course he didn't. What do you do with the book now? Tear the pages out and start fires with it, I guess. Human opinions about this stuff are a dime a dozen, and there's only about a million dozens. So, okay, let's dive in. Jesus left the temple and was walking away when his disciples came up to him and called his attention to its buildings. The best we can do is take an architectural rendering and an artist's drawings or paintings of what the magnitude of the Herod's temple in Jesus' day would have been. If you've ever been to the great cathedrals here in the United States or in Europe, all of them, including St. Peter's Basilica in Rome, would have paled to the magnificence of Herod's temple. Well, as they were leaving the temple, the disciples were, and this is a little bit humorous to me. It's kind of like walking with the architect of a wonderful building and then saying to the architect, dude, look at all this. Look at the intricacies. Look at the design. Architect already knew, right? But they're saying, well, these buildings, wow. Jesus said, do you see all these things? Well, and the answer is, well, of course. I tell you the truth, not one stone here will be left on another. Every one will be thrown down. Well, that's not the comment that the disciples were expecting. I kind of feel like the disciples expected Jesus to say, great observation, boys. It is a place of wonder. It is God's home. Verse 3, as Jesus was sitting on the Mount of Olives, now from the temple, you went down into a little valley and then up a hill. So it's not like they just stepped out of the temple and onto the Mount of Olives. It was a bit of a walk, but Jesus, sitting on the Mount of Olives, the disciples came to him privately. Tell us, they said, when will this happen? And what will be the sign of your coming and of the end of the age? All right, let's start here. For the Jew in Jesus' day, for his disciples, if the temple was to be destroyed, that meant the end of their world. This phrase, the end of the age, it could carry more than one meaning. It could mean the end of the world. It also could mean the end of the age of this time period where God dwelt with his people in the temple. And for the Jew, that was as good as the end of the world. We can't relate to it. I don't think. Maybe you can, but I can observe it, but that's the best I can do. And Jesus answered, watch out that no one deceives you. Okay, now, I'm pretty easily deceived. I hate to say that. I hate that it's true, but I am. I think there's some people that, man, their radar is so accurate. They can't be. I'm not one of them. He said, don't be deceived. For many will come in my name, claiming I am the Christ, and will deceive many. You will hear of wars and rumors of wars, but see to it that you're not alarmed. Let's step back. There will be people. Jesus said to his disciples, there will be people coming, claiming to be me. But you know better. You'll hear about wars and rumors of wars. Such things must happen, but the end is still to come. Now, I don't think there's been more than maybe 4, 5 to 10 years of time where there were not wars happening somewhere on earth. In our day, today, gratefully, the wars are not on our, piece of earth, but they are not, when you think about how easily and quickly, comparatively, we can get from the United States to Europe and the Middle East. It's not that far from us. But anyway, okay. Just the fact that there are wars and rumors. Boy, is that today? I just read a piece that Israel is thinking seriously about sending ground troops into Lebanon. Okay, that's a rumor, and it might happen, but that doesn't mean the end is here. Verse 7, nation will rise against nation and kingdom against kingdom. There will be famines and earthquakes in various places. All these are the beginning of birth pains, natural disasters, the famines, the earthquakes, I would even include in hurricanes, and well, that's not the end. He says these are the beginning of birth pains. And this idea of birth pains, I think we ought to think of it in two ways. One is, what happens when a woman experiences birth pains? Eventually she gives birth, okay? I also, through direct observation for 3 times, realize birth pains are big and horrible. So I won't ever experience anything nearly like what Debbie experienced through the birth of our three daughters. Painful. No, not little. Verse 9. Then you will be handed over to be persecuted and put to death, and you will be hated by all nations because of me. I have heard this preached and taught, that this is the destiny of all believers in Jesus. All right, let's remind ourselves of the context of this. To whom was Jesus speaking? To his 12 disciples. I feel like we can learn from what he said to them, but this particular promise, it's possible that this is not a universal promise, but it's directed at them as a prophecy. And, oh, by the way, it happened. John was the only apostle to die of natural causes in old age. The other 10 or 11, because Judas killed himself and then was replaced. In the book of Acts, we read about that. So that there were 12 apostles. The other 11 apostles were all martyred. They were all murdered. And they were persecuted. The church itself in century 1 was persecuted in such a way that they left Jerusalem and dispersed into the world. Persecution is going on today around the world. Horrible persecution. Yeah, persecution is going to be part of the picture. And all nations will hate them. Okay, that happened to them. At that time, many will turn away from the faith and will betray and hate each other. When the horrible extremity of this kind of, stress is not even a strong enough word, persecution, the faith of people gets tested and either shown to be authentic or less than, and there will be lots of less than. At that time, many will turn away from the faith and will betray and hate each other, and many false prophets will appear and deceive many people. There's always been false prophets, and according to Jesus, there always will be. And I don't have the authority to identify for you who the false prophets are. Verse 12. Because of the increase of wickedness, the love of most will grow cold, but he who stands firm to the end will be saved. For me, this may be the first big bullet point on this discourse by Jesus. There will be an increase in wickedness. Look around. I'm only going with my lifetime, but there is more identifiable, real wickedness in the world today than ever in my lifetime. It feels like earlier in my lifetime, there was wickedness, but it kind of was under the radar. It was kind of in the shadows. Not so today. It's in your face. And because of that, it's an interesting kind of word picture. The love of most will grow cold. All the wickedness in the world, if you focus on that, you won't be focused on the power and presence and reality of Jesus, and your love will grow cold. But Jesus says, he who stands firm to the end will be saved. Come back to that next time on Soul Care with Stevie.